Hi, and welcome to 2016. For our January free tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and do a, excuse my arm, cover tutorial. I'm going to show you how we're making the cover for the tutorial that I'll be doing using Bo Bunny Genevieve. This is just the cover. I haven't done the inside, so I want to show you what we're making because I've already pre-cut to hopefully save time. You're going to be making an 8.5 by 8.5 cover. This has a 3-inch flap that will open for your you'll have magnets here and magnets there, and I'm using the basic gray. Then we have a 2.5 inch by 8.5 inch space right there, and then we have one here which is the spine. And then when you close it, this is how it looks. So you'll have, now for the tutorial, I already did a sneak peek video. You'll have a side you can decorate. We're going to be doing this method here. I'm going to show you how to do the corset and the ruffles on this edge. And so you're going to want 2 pieces of chipboard. Like I said, I did pre-cut mine to save time. So we want 2 8.5 by 8.5 pieces. Then you're going to want 2 8.5 by 2.5. If you're making, I just need to look up here for a band-aid. Sorry, I just noticed I smacked myself there on the razor blade. If you're making your hinges, which I usually do, they're five hinges. I do 5 pages, and I do 3/8 of an inch bindings. No, 3/8. I do 3/8 of an inch gussets, and then I do my hinges come out to be about 2.5. If you're going to do 6 pages, your hinges will need to be larger. Your spine piece, because your hinge will be larger. Hope I didn't just mess everybody up. Now, most of the time I won't do the cover till last. I know some like to do it first. I don't, because I have been making an album and decided I wanted a 6-page in the album, and your hinge your hinge will be bigger, so your binding needs to be bigger. There we go. Then this is the flap over, so I like to use a 3-inch piece. Let me tell you something. You can buy a lot of tutorials, and I know you probably have. And when you buy a tutorial, and there's nothing wrong with that, please, when you buy a tutorial, it gives you the dimensions for that album you're making. But one good rule of thumb is you can make an album any size you want. You can have a 6 by 8 page, you can have a 5 by 8 page, you can have a 5 by 7 page. I always go whole numbers. It makes it easier with the math, or I go 5.5. I don't go with 8.25 by 8.25. Sometimes it's nice though, then you can just put your 8 by 8 sheet down without doing any cutting usually. But I do 8 by 8, and then my cover is 8.5 by 8.5. Whatever size page you make any size your heart desires. Then I just make my cover 1/2 inch longer and 1/2 inch wider. That's the simplicity of it. You don't need a special tutorial. You just need to know how to put a cover together, and you can make any size album. You can even make a 4 by 4 just by doing your pages 3.5 by 3.5 and your cover 4 by 4. Now you'll need 3 pieces of cardstock. I always use the Cardabella because of the weight and the texture. It's just gorgeous. And you're going to need 3 of them. And I cut mine 2 inches wider than my chipboard because I want an inch at the top and an inch at the bottom. I used to cut it off in my older videos because I would just put the 12 by 12 together, and then I found this is much easier. Another thing to keep me from going crooked when I put my chipboard down is I take my sheets. So you're going to put it 10.5 inch side. Let me bring this up. It's pretty big. And I'm going to score the bottom. It don't matter actually because you can turn it. I'm going to score all 3 sheets. And when you're making a cover like this, you need 3 sheets. You will have some to cut off, but you can use that for your tags. And we're going to do the last one. And this is also going to be my guide. This is how I'm going to keep my page straight, and hopefully my chipboard won't be heading west or east. And 3/8 of an, or 1/4 of an inch score tape. So you want to start with just one of the pieces. This is going to be your bottom where you have scored. Sorry, I actually scrubbed my desk today and I'm finding all kinds of glue and, you know, those good things. So we're going to take our 1/4 inch and we're just going to go along that edge. Then we're going to take our next piece and we're going to put a 1/4 inch score tape. Now, one thing I've decided after last year, I tend to become, I love wide score tape. I have every size, but I tend to use the wider, and I have found, you know what, I'm wasting score tape. I don't need it that wide. So I'm going to try and pare down on the score tape a little bit this year. Now you want to make sure your score tape is overlapping. And you do want to pretty much get those lines, your score line right there, pretty marked. And I like to bend it up right there where it's going to crease. Just to kind of get it going. So now we've got a seam that's headed that way. So I want to make sure my seam on this piece is also going the same direction. Again, personal preference, how you, the orientation of how your paper's going, that's just me. So I want to make sure it's on the right side. And there are, I know, there's 1,000,001 ways to do covers. And we eventually all just learn what's comfortable for us. And we usually add or modify it as we're going. One thing that I have found, so I'm going to show you, and I've actually brought it into countrycraftcreations.com, is the 8.5 by 11 inch score tape. When you're making a lot of albums, because I do craft shows, I make albums for people, this saves me so much time. And you know what? For $1.85 a sheet, you're saving your roll of score tape, and you're going to love this. Let me show you. So I'm going to take my first piece, and my cutter is over here. So, excuse me. I'm going to cut it about 1/8 of an inch shorter. Now, one thing, let me show you about this. You don't need it edge to edge. One thing you can do with these big sheets, you can cut it and then just have 3 big pieces and save a little bit. I don't. I just use this whole thing. But you're going to see how much faster it goes. Now, if you're not, of course, you probably don't have these laying around. But you can now at Country Craft Creations, especially if you're making a lot of albums, or even if you're just making the occasional album. This saves so much time. Just like your score tape, you remove the backing and you plop it down. And I also have 1 inch score tape that I like. But now that I've started using these, I love these. Now, if you're using just score tape, if you're using your 1/4 inch, or maybe you have 3/8 of an inch or 1/2 of an inch is what is recommended, or 1 inch, and go around your edges and make sure you fill in pretty good here. Now, when it comes to when I cut the sheet, you're going to have some pieces left. So then let's see, this will probably fit the 3 inch just fine. So I'm going to use it for my 3 inch piece. And when I do the cover this way, I end up using just my score tape on one of the end pieces here. So it doesn't have to be edge to edge because you've got lots of coverage. And I'm going to take my next piece. I'm going to do the same thing, cut it down. on my cutter. I'm going to just plop it down. And like I said, if you make a lot of albums, or maybe even just the occasional, I'll tell you what, the hand gets pretty tired going over and over with the square tape, I think. Now I have that other piece left over, so I'm going to cut it down to 2.5 to fit, or not quite. I just, look at that, slick as a whistle. And we're just going to put that down. Hangs over a little bit, that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. Now for my last piece, I will take my 1/2" score tape. If I had 1 inch, I would be using my 1 inch right now. I haven't opened a new package, so. But in reality, I found 2 sheets of that at $1.85 a piece. And then the score tape has actually saved my 1/2" roll. So that's just another option available. Now we want to go ahead, and this is how we're going to lay this out. So here's my end. This first piece, match it to your, you've got that 1 inch score line. You can see there's the crease. So where I joined the 2 pieces of paper, it's going to come together. And I always like to lay these out first, because I have done these and I've had them in the wrong orientation, and it's pretty hard to fix. So we're just going to lay one of our spine pieces. Then we're going to need the other cover. What we're doing is we're making sure we're going to have enough, and if we have to readjust, kind of gives me an idea. And we're fine. So we know, and I'm just going to push this away. I know this is really long. So my first piece over here on the left-hand side is going to go down. Remember, we have this score line we made. And we're going to put it about in the middle. So you can use, if you're using a wet adhesive, or you can just rip off the back of your score tape. And I'm lining it up as best as I can with that score line. Now, 1/4 inch score tape. This has been my lifesaver since I started making books. That's going to ensure you have plenty of space in between your hinges, so that when you close your book, if you've ever had your paper tear, crack, you know that awful feeling when you go to close it and it just pops. It's because you've gotten your hinges too close together to the book. You've got to have room, especially if you're using a heavier score tape. So I removed the backing, and you can kind of see where that 1/4 inch, I just barely overlap it. Then you have a nice space, and then this is also going to serve, when we put that top down, it's going to grab your top piece and hold your page, your book together very nicely. And then we'll remove our score tape from the 1/4 inch, remove our backing. Isn't that awesome? Lining it up with my score line. Just keep moving our paper. And the construction is the same no matter what size album you're building. Next piece is going to be our 2.5 inch. It would be like the same as your spine piece. here. Score tape. And now my 3-inch piece. Remove our backing. And line that up. Now, I'm just going to turn it over with the flat side of a bone folder. But when I turn her back over, I am going to take my bone folder, pointy edge, and I'm going to concentrate right there where the paper has come together. Now, it depends on the paper you're using. You may not be able to do this, so be careful if you're not familiar with the cardstock you're using. I'm going to tell you, if it's a Michael's or one of the Joann's, you're not going to be able to do this very hard, especially not like I'm doing. Cardabella is a little pricey, I realize, but I'll tell you what, if you're making something to last because you want it to become an heirloom, or you sell your albums, you definitely don't want customers coming back. Now, this side, I'm going to cut it off so I have 1 inch, and I'm just going to put it into my cutter. And I'm going to do the same with my other edge. Just slide that off. Just go over my ends. Now, before I even put my tape down, I'm going to pick it up and just push it against each other. Or push it against the chipboard. Kind of doing a soft crease. But you can see how it's starting to form. Now, when you turn it back over, I am going to use my 1/2 inch. You can use 1/2 inch, 3/8 here, or your liquid adhesive. I've never recommended though a liquid adhesive with an album. I did one. Thank goodness I did it for my brother, and I had to rebuild it. After I don't care what kind of glue it is. I have not found one, so if you have one, that's fantastic. That does not get hard over the years. So I stopped experimenting and just stuck with my score tape. Now, because we need to go along the chipboard, but we only need to cover this space, and I'm just going to use my 1/4 inch. I used to use my 3/8 of an inch, but I think it was overkill. I'm sure it was. Just go along the end. And I am taking it all the way across. There's no need to stop and cut it. Okay. Now, you have to cut off, we have to cut off these corners. We need to miter them. One thing you can do if you're uncomfortable with eyeballing it is just bend that over your chipboard so that you get a crease. And then just over here on this other side, cut it off. You don't want to get too close because you want those to come together. And also you need to consider the width, the thickness of your paper. The thicker it is, the more space it needs. So that 1/8 of an inch rule, or 1/4, we're coming up a little, is not going to work with every paper. My chipboard's peeling there. I've never seen it do that. Let's put down some score tape. Sorry, I just don't want to get that paper over and then have it come up. There we go. Same over here. Or if you're comfortable, just eyeball it. I can tell you, the larger pieces of score tape that I use just cut off about 15 minutes of my cover. I know that doesn't sound like a lot when you're producing a lot of albums, especially now we're getting ready for the craft fair season in our state and weddings, and I've got a lot of albums to make. It really cuts down your time. And then it saves your score tape on the roll. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start at the top. I like to just do some bending here. And then we're just going to bring it right over. And the paper does stretch. It doesn't stretch as much as fabric, but it does stretch. So I like to give it a little bit of a pull. So I want that very edge totally covered. And I'm just using this flat edge. Now we're going to do, I turned it around. Now we're going to do this side. Okay, our ends. Now, for me, it's always easier to kind of work from behind it. So I'm going to bring it up and I pull this back. I'm going to push those edges in so that it covers that chipboard and won't stick out. Once you get it over there and it looks nice, I'm going to just pull it over. Okay, I'm going to do the same here, kind of working from the side, so hopefully you can see. Just pull it away just a hair. Some ladies like, or crafters I've seen use their bone folder to push it in. Probably would be easier. I just haven't gotten the full knack of it. And there we have the cover to our album almost done. Now, your fold marks. I love this bone folder. It has somewhat of a rounded, fatter edge. Just get them at Joann's. This one I have poked through, so I'm careful when using it around my covers. But this one is great. Now, I've shown if you don't have one, you can take a pen that has, just so it has the rounded bottom, and you want to push that paper in there. Now, because you have that space, you should be able to go down pretty far and your paper will move. It's flexible. It's when you have them too close together to the two chipboards that you'll hear that popping and cracking. So there I did it with a pen that has a nice rounded bottom. Whoops. Or this folder that has the nice rounded edge. Then you want to just make sure you can bend this over the same. Bring it up. And there you have your cover. Now, one thing we need to do is add our magnets. And I like to use the basic gray large magnets for this. And let me just get this open. And they're great. They hold wonderful. And I'm going to be honest with you, I bought a bunch of these, which are stuck to everything else, off of Etsy. I thought, let's try them. And I'll tell you what, you can already see we've got some more broken ones. They're chipped. I don't know if you can see those edges. And it probably doesn't matter, but that tells me they're weakened. And I've had them break in half when they smash back together like that. I mean, they're good for some things, but I won't use them on my albums. I just don't want to have to put all that time into my book and tear it apart. Yes, the basic grays are a little more expensive, but you know you've got quality. Oh, and we're not ready for these. Sorry. So we got into the magnets. We're going to put them down, but not yet. But the basic gray is the better quality. For the inside now, we need to cover the inside. It will take 3 more pieces. Not one, it'll take 2 more pieces, plus that end we cut off. And I'm going to put mine all together. I can do that in this cutter. And I'm going to cut them to 7 7/8. I just want that 1/8 of an inch off to start with. Turn it this way. Because we know, no, I told you wrong. It's 8 1/2. So we want to go just 1/8 of an inch shorter for our first cut. And you may want to go even shorter. Let's look at it. But no, I like that. It has the 1/8 of an inch border. You may not be able to see it very well, but you will see it on yours. You can have it go edge to edge. I don't, because I've had it go over the edge. So now when we're placing our cardstock, that's why it's good to use the shorter piece that we had. You don't want it to ever land at the edge of the hinge because it's going to come up. You need it to exceed it. And so I'm going to turn my book. This is why I like to lay my paper down first. I'm going to start at the closure end with my large piece. So you can see hinge, hinge, and now we've got plenty of space. Now my next piece will be added on, and we're going to hinge, hinge, and then we'll just need a tiny piece to fill that in, and there'll be more one piece. So it looks good. We're going to go ahead and apply our score tape. And I'm going to use 1/2 inch to go around the perimeter. I have tried to use those full sheets, and I won't use them again because they're like magnets. It just sucked right down, and it didn't. It was a mess. If you don't have it completely perfectly lined up, because you won't get it up, and you don't really have any room to play because you've covered the whole sheet. So did it once, not doing that one again. Now for the inside, I'm just going to use my 1/4 inch. The only reason I'm using the 1/4 inch is it was right there. You can use your 3/8. You can still go in the middle here with your 1/2 inch. Like I said, I'm trying to pare down on my score tape usage for 2016. It's pretty strong stuff anyway. Just now see that if you're having to do this on every single piece, and you did it on the cover, you can see what I mean by after a while you're just sick of putting down score tape. Okay, so we're going to now make sure we put it on as straight as possible. Using a flat bone folder, just go ahead. Don't worry about your hinges right now. Just get this down. We're going to repeat again For our next, this is the longer piece. So we've got the two 12-inch pieces going down first. And if you've been using the Cardabella or you've tried it and you love it, the black, navy blue, red, and gray will be shipping this week. And they actually will be coming out with more and more colors. So can you just see the different color albums that we will be able to create? I'm loving it, especially with the new Graphic 45. They're starting their sneak peeks tomorrow morning, so make sure you jump on the Graphic 45 site, and I will have all of it in stock, and we'll have it up for the pre-order. And of course, it'll always be in stock on my website because I live close to the warehouse, so it's like I just drive down and pick up my orders, so we get it first, usually before anybody else, as long as I get my orders in early, because they do go by first, you know, who puts their orders in, what merchants do. But having that gray cardstock and those different colors is going to look gorgeous with the new lines. So be sure you jump over to their website and check out their sneak peek starting tomorrow morning. Okay, now let's get our top and bottom as lined up as possible. We just have this small piece. You can measure it or you can just put your paper down. I put it down so that it's overlapping, and then I just mark it with my pencil and cut that end off because you do want it to overlap. Okay, looks great. We're going to do the same thing around the perimeter. Now this is also going to make your album very sturdy by doing the inside. Gives it that really finished look. And it gives you a nice palette to decorate on. You have a nice smooth surface. And you don't take the chance of ruining your pattern paper or your, you know, whatever you're using. Like if it gets stuck in the crack and you really can't fix it. So this is why I do the inside of my books the exact same as I do the outside. Okay. Again, just line up your top, your bottom, and of course that edge. Now we have to go in and define where our creases are. I just turn mine. I like to work on the spine piece first, I call it. So you can see where it starts to break. Now you're going to push up and pushing up, and I'm just helping it into that crack there because you've got score tape and you want it to grasp it. Now I'm going to bring this up. Do you see how nice that looks? Because the score tape has grabbed a hold of it, and now I have a really nice, almost real book-like seam there. And because I have spacing, you should be able to almost close your book, and depending on your cardstock. Cardabella, I'm not worried. Now I am going to take the edge of my bone folder now and go along my edges. Okay, now we have the other piece. So I'm grabbing underneath here with my hands, and I'm just pushing it up slightly. Next, you want to softly crease that paper to help it get into the area. Now you're going to see it's going to get a little harder to fold because it's starting to take shape. I'm going to turn it around. Now we have two more that we need to do because this is our cover. or you know, that we're going to put our closure. There we go. Edges. Now we have the last one. Same thing. Put your hand behind there and just help it. Along those edges. Bring your book together. Now, because you want it to fold over nicely on the front, I'm going to just work it a little bit because it's pretty tight with this paper. See how it lays over better? So you may have to work it just a little bit depending on the weight of your paper. So there is our cover. This seam will be nicely hidden, and this seam also, you won't see it, and there's no seams here or here. I love that. So magnet time. We're going to use 3 magnets. If you have smaller magnets, I would use 4 or 5, up to you. I like my covers to stay shut. So I'm going to put 2 of them together. If you're using the basic gray, the plus and the minus, just remove your backing. Now I just pick a spot about a thumb width because you want it to be covered with your paper. 3/8 of an inch works really well for this. Then I just slide that top piece off. And I'm just going to put some score tape on top. That way, when this top piece grabs, my magnets won't come pulled apart. And I'm going to tell you, I have a customer and I did her a couple of albums and I actually put my magnets on with glossy accents. And when she opened it, they still pulled apart. And I had put score tape on top. So I'm not going to use glossy accents again, only because it ripped the paper completely with it. I don't know why, but now I'm going to just lay my ruler down here, and it's going to help me keep this pretty straight if possible. And basic gray, you'll notice in my other videos I had a lot of trouble getting this paper off the back. And actually they've changed the formulation or something of the tape, they told me, and I'll tell you, they're so much easier to work with. Oh, one thing I mentioned. Okay, after I do take that off, I do use score tape on top of their adhesive for extra strength. Or extra holding power. I've got a sore thumb, and so it's hard to get a hold of that. Now, if you want to get your magnet in the middle, I just use my ruler. We know it's 8.5. So you can do that if you want. You don't have to. Slide it off. Tape on top. And again, these extra steps are mainly to help you with your, so that you don't have those frustrating things happen. Magnets popping off when you're trying to place them, and they're probably, you know, not necessary unless you're me. Sorry, you know that is a joke if you've watched my videos. Because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. Okay, there we go. We've taken the back off. Now, I like to stand mine up. I'm holding this, and I bring these 2 pieces together. Now, I'm just going to lay it down and push on the inside. Make sure everything's down, those magnets. And then I'm going to open the cover, and look at that. we have a beautiful cover. Now, because I'm not going to be working on this one for a while, I am going to go ahead and just place score tape over the top. You don't want to, you want to make sure that you have that spacing, because you have to lay your paper down and you want them to be hidden. And you will, even in the lightest colors of paper. So you can kind of see them. You have to look really close. There you go, at an angle. But they're under there. They're taped. And you, unless you're looking for them, you're really not going to see them. And they hold beautifully. And like I said, by this weekend, this will be the free tutorial of the page of the inside decoration. Now, like I mentioned, see, once you cover the inside with your pattern paper, it's beautiful. You don't have to cover your album in the pattern paper unless you're really good at it and can do it without it cracking, and I can't. So that is our cover. And now you can go ahead and do your hinges. And in this tutorial, I'm not doing the hinge because I do have my Christmas Carol album shows you the hinges, and I'll be showing it in the tutorial for our Genevieve album. So that is the cover, and that's the cover you're going to make. So if you wanted to get started, I will be using white. Like I said, I needed this one for another project, so I went ahead and used this color, but I'm going to use white with the Genevieve. So if you want to go ahead and make your cover with white, that's the main base we'll be using. So I hoped this answered a lot of questions and helped you. And also it gave you the courage. Don't worry about the size. You don't need a special size every time you make an album. You make it your size. I mean, a tutorial. You don't have to have a tutorial to get a different size. I know some, I've had messages on that. You make it any size you want, and then just take it down a ½ inch on your pages. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks. Bye-bye.